Hi, this is Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy. In this episode, we are going to talk about Christmas. It's no simple holiday, but regardless of the trials and tribulations, it is at its best a joyful season to share with loved ones. Listen on to hear what Christmas means to us. Hey Muffy, so on this episode we're going to talk about Christmas. Both you and I celebrate Christmas and have in our life. I know we already did a episode about the holidays, and that kind of covered all the fall holidays. But now that it's almost Christmas, I thought it would be nice and appropriate for this time of year to just talk about Christmas. It's interesting this year, Christmas and Hanukkah actually fall around the same time. I have a number of Jewish friends in my community. I mean, we have a decent Jewish population, so it's always kind of fun to enjoy what's going on with them and for them and vice versa. T had a friend when she was younger who is Jewish. They're not really friends anymore. They're not enemies, they're just not friends. And they've kind of taken different paths. But when they were younger, we would invite her friend, S, over when we were decorating the Christmas tree because she doesn't decorate a Christmas tree and she just, she found it fun. And they also invited us over for important events around Hanukkah. And I just really enjoy celebrating the Christmas or what Christmas and Hanukkah and there are other cultural things and events that are happening around the same time. And I just love that. It's just kind of, for me, it's like what Christmas is all about. Yes, Christmas is about presents, as Jay would say. I've had to have a talk with both my girls about presents and how they don't, you just don't get a bazillion presents and how we're lucky and, in comparison. And, I've had to navigate the whole Santa thing. I mean, my older daughter, T, knows Santa isn't real. Jay still believes in Santa. I think she has a feeling I think she has an inkling that Santa is not real, but she's not willing to give up on the belief, and I think that is amazing because we should always believe in the spirit of Santa. So I don't know. She has not, in past years, she's already written Santa a letter and put together a list of all the gifts she wants. And I've had many conversations with her about, Santa can't just get you anything, or, Santa may sometimes go to Jazam's, our local toy store, and get a gift versus making it in his shop. And so it's very difficult to navigate, to be honest. I mean, it was funny when T was younger, much younger, like in kindergarten. She was going off about all the presents. We were driving somewhere. It was evening. I can't remember exactly, but she was just going on. And I just got so fed up. I was like, Christmas isn't just about presents. It's about the 3 wise men, baby Jesus. And she was like looking at me like, what? Because we've never really taken the girls to church. Although we did go to a Christmas Eve service last year. It was very short and simple. And just about as much as we could all manage, never having done it before. I mean, I did it growing up a lot, and so did a fair amount, but it's not our thing. But so, I was like, I just got so mad that I started trying to tell the story, and like, how do you do that while you're driving and your child's in the back of the car and like, I haven't read the Bible in a long time. And yes, I know the story, but, recreating it, I have to laugh. I wish somebody had recorded me because what I said, I mean, it was mostly all accurate. It just was the way that I said it, like, that, like, it's just, I mean, if any person of the church would have just been like, what are you talking about? Like, how could you depict a picture of Christmas in that way to your daughter? Anyways, we're not overly religious, although we do try to live an ethical life. And for A and I, that's very important. And for us, that's what we try to instill in our girls. But when it comes to Christmas, it's tricky, right? Because there's all the commercialism and, Jay really loves the presents. She loves getting them. She also really likes giving them. And that's something that's really grown as Jay has gotten older. And it's really sweet. She takes a lot of pride in getting gifts. She actually makes a lot of gifts, so it's really sweet. And I mean, aren't those the most special gifts? The ones that, truly come from your heart. I mean, even the ones that you buy can come from the heart. But, a child making a gift for you is a very special thing. Now, on the other hand, T has become more and more like her father, where she's not a big gift giver. She's into the holiday still, but not like she was when she was younger. So for me, that's a little bit sad, but also in some ways easier. And yeah, he's not a big fan of Christmas because of all the gifts and, to him, it feels very lavish. I mean, he didn't grow up in a household like that. Whereas I did. I mean, even though we didn't have a lot of money, my mom was able to somehow always find a way to get us a whole bunch of gifts, which I'm grateful for. And that was a special memory for me as a child. Not all memories with my family are special, so that is one I can definitely take away as something that I experienced and my mom made it very special for us. And so I like to do that for my girls. When A and I were first married and pre-kids, our Christmas was a lot more simple. I mean, we had to navigate like managing two families and, siblings and that kind of thing. And, we worked that out over time, but it was much more simple. We used to get like the, little Charlie Brown tree, the one in the lot that nobody would get. And he and I loved to get that. Now we have to get a bigger tree and a more full tree. And yeah, I sometimes miss my Charlie Brown tree, but Jay doesn't want a Charlie Brown tree, but we've all learned to compromise and scale back a little bit. I have to say we have so many ornaments that having a smaller tree than we've had in the past is a little bit difficult because our tree gets overwhelmed with ornaments. But it's a special time. I mean, also, back when it was just A and I, it wasn't as stressful, or at least feels like that now. For me, I do all of the gift getting and that kind of thing for the girls, and A doesn't, and that's fine. That's a role that I take on. But it can be really stressful and, wanting to get meaningful or special gifts that they both want. And then just like the age differences now, Jay is still young enough where she can get a bunch of stuff like a Barbie doll, like a this or that. T doesn't play with Barbie dolls. She's almost 17, and 2025 she'll be 17. She'll get her driver's license. So, those are things I can't give her a driver's license for Christmas, right? So it's harder. She already has a phone and she has an iPad and, now she likes clothes. So that's something I can do, but it, definitely gets harder as they get older. While I will cherish these times now because they don't last forever, I do also look forward at some point to be able to maybe just go away for Christmas. Just go somewhere warm and spend the day as a family and exchange just one or two gifts and do something different. So, I like tradition, but I like to mix it up a little bit and everything be a little bit different every year. So, and then, there's always the money issue. A and I, our money situation is a little bit different than it was last year. Just because I am kind of working for myself and being entrepreneurial at the moment. And I mean, that may change over time, but it may not. It's tough to know. So that weighs on me, at this time of the year and this season. And so I've tried to be a little bit more mindful of Andrew's anxiety around that. So yeah, like all the stuff to balance. And then, I mean, food, we usually keep it simple. So I don't go all out cooking, making stuff like my mom ever did. And that works for us. I mean, we kind of as a family decide what are we going to have for breakfast on Christmas Day. And, and then we always do something super simple on Christmas evening for dinner, because by that point I'm exhausted and I'm just done, right? Because I am doing. And then on top of all the doing, I also have to juggle my everyday life and my job and all that kind of stuff. So, and, the Christmas season in general, it's especially short this year because Thanksgiving was so late. And then, so we literally only have a few weekends in the month of December. I like when it's a little bit longer, but, it gives me more time. But, then there's all the commitments. Like A always has a work party. Sometimes I have had a work party, but I did not this year because I've been working for myself. And then my friend A in Washington, D.C., she always has a Christmas party. And so A and I went to that this year. And so that's already a one weekend. And then, yeah, I mean, it goes by in the, flick of an eye. What's that saying? But that's not the right saying. But so I love it. And I'm not going to say I hate it because I don't. I love it. But it also comes with a lot of strings attached that are not always pleasant. But regardless of the stress, the anxiety, and some things that are just, not as much fun for me to have to do, I try to enjoy, again, those little moments, those little things, and the season, and, trying to see it through my girl's eyes. As much as possible. I think for A, he's happy when it's over. With Christmas comes the end of the year. And that's also sometimes I don't know, it feels like a little scary, but also exciting, because there's new adventures in 2025 to be had, but also, what is going to be in 2025, right? So Christmas it's a whole lot of mix of emotions and ups and downs and sideways. So this year I've tried to be, I've tried to slow it down a little bit, be a little bit more thoughtful, enjoy in the moment, where I don't think I did as last year because I had started a new job and everything was just so off kilter as a result that I just kind of went through the motions, and I didn't want to do that this year. So I did it. And, I've enjoyed it a lot more, I think, as a result. And I think that goes back to, everything that I've gone through in this past year. And I won't go into that here because we are going to talk about our year in review in another episode. But Christmas this year feels different. And I think it is for me because of that enlivening. And I haven't been quite so stressed, which is a nice change. So, really going to take the spirit of the Christmas holiday and enjoy it in a new meaningful way than maybe I haven't in the past few years. So here's to us and the gift that the Girls Who Gab is, and the gift of our new friendship. I mean, we've always been friends, but this is friends on a very different level, and it's been one of the greatest gifts of this past year. So, Merry Christmas, Muffy. Love you.
Hi, Habs. Merry Christmas season to you and yours.
Gosh, listening to you and all the different aspects of Christmas, there's just so much to think about and take in with this particular holiday and season. I loved your thoughts on Christmas and Hanukkah being around the same time this year. It really brings back memories of my childhood. We lived next door to neighbors who were Jewish, and every year we would celebrate Hanukkah with them, and they celebrated Christmas with us. And some of my best memories were with them and their kids and growing up and eating all the kugel and potato pancakes and just all the yummy food and the dreidel and the game of the dreidel and just participating and seeing the boys get their Hanukkah gifts. And we didn't get any gifts, but like understanding what that was about and just their tradition, right? And being included in that tradition. And then when they would come over to our house on Christmas, Mr. W would always, who's no longer living actually, but he would always help put all the toys together and have the big feast with us. And, we just, really all the years growing up, we did that. Well, at least for many years, at least till I was about 10. And then we moved from that area, but like, it was just amazing. So I love that you have someone to experience that with yourself. And yes, the spirit of Santa is alive and well in all of us. I think it's interesting not only about receiving gifts, but also giving gifts. And just I'm sure what you said there, a child making a gift for you, that is so special. It is so special. I mean, I don't have children, so I don't know what it'd be like to have my own child make me a gift, but I've had other, like my niece and other children make things for me, and it just touches my heart when they give it to me, and it is just so special. So I can't even imagine it being my own child, someone doing that and giving something to me. What a wonderful feeling that must be, and how children do. You grow up and you're receiving all these gifts. If you're lucky and live in a family where you're getting a lot of gifts like that. And then at some point it's like, wait a second, I want to give gifts too, to my parents or to my best friends or whomever. And how that changes, like from always just only receiving to also giving, and that kind of specialness about it. I mean, the gift stuff, growing up, gifts were huge in my family. I don't know. I mean, we didn't grow up with tons of money at all, but for some reason, it does really remind me. I was thinking about this. It reminds me of J.D. Vance in his book, Hillbilly Elegy. I don't know if you read that book, but I did a long time ago. And he talks about, because he grew up in Ohio, and I also did, but he grew up in Southern Ohio. And I don't know, he's talking really about socioeconomic realities for people. And I remember, I don't know the page, but I do remember it was in his book that he talked about the quote unquote giving the kids a nice Christmas, like that meant like you get the money together to give gifts, and the kids have a bunch of stuff under the tree. And I think his point was sort of like, that isn't what the value should be, is giving the kid a nice Christmas, but how that is sort of a value. And I guess I grew up with having that nice, quote unquote, nice Christmas. There were always a ton of gifts under the tree. And, it wasn't just my parents, but my mother's parents, my maternal grandparents, who gave us a lot of gifts. And my grandmother always, you could always tell her gifts. I mean, when I was really young, I thought it was Santa. But, she just beautifully wrapped things. My mother did not beautifully wrap things. She wrapped, but it wasn't beautiful. But my grandmother, beautifully wrapped things. And she always brought a carload of gifts down, and then from her town to our town. And then, my parents had a bunch of gifts. But I'll tell you, I love that Jay still believes in Santa. When I was 4 or 5 years old, my older brother and I were having a fight, and he grabbed me and he pulled me into my parents' room, and he opened my father's closet, or our father's closet, and he said, there's Santa for you. And all the gifts were there wrapped. And I just was crushed. I was crushed. I still remember that, like how he took that from me in such a mean, malicious way. Yeah, my younger brother, he believed in Santa till I think about the age of 9 or 10. And then he realized, like, okay, the gig's up. But he got to believe for a long time. I think I really wanted him to believe. I think my brother got in trouble for telling me, so then he wanted Mark to believe. So we all kind of kept that for him. But not for me. But the spirit of Santa is definitely alive and well. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't we all love to have a big jolly man come down our chimneys and give us lots of gifts? But we do that for each other. We do that for our children. We do it for, other, children who are not our children. And then eventually children realize, oh, I want to do something like that for others. And it's just interesting how that happens. RK, my husband, he never grew up with Christmas. He grew up Hindu, but actually his father was an atheist. But, in Malaysia, which is where he grew up, there were Christians, there were Muslims, and there were Chinese, but it just wasn't, something, his mother was Hindu, so there wasn't a Christian celebration, but they would all go, I think his mother's best friend was Catholic, and they would go to her house on Christmas and probably get a little gift or two and have, spicy food on this really hot day that was Christmas over there. I mean, he has memories of it, but it was never like what it is here, right? And like the gift giving. When we were first engaged, he was like, we're not going to do gifts. I don't think he hadn't really understood what gifts were, like North American style, because then he went to Australia, and Australia is so hot at Christmas time. Like, it's just not traditional. I think people in Australia plan to like go skiing and stuff in North America or Europe at Christmas time to give their kids a white Christmas and have that experience, because over in Australia at Christmas time, it's like 100 degrees. It's blazing hot. The sun is high. It's their longest days. It's just non-traditional. So, think about like, oh, let's get a bunch of gifts and put under like a nice Christmas tree. It's just none of that. So when he was coming to North America for Christmas, and he was just really all very much just not at all his way or tangible to him. Now, after all these many years, 22 years being together, yeah, he's come around, and I guess a couple of years ago was maybe the last time we celebrated kind of my traditional Christmas, and we did give each other a bunch of gifts, and we get the pets gifts, and usually our Christmas morning is just tons of gifts, the pets opening things, the cat getting in her box of toys, because we give her this big box of toys. We have these stockings hung, and they're all filled, and it's just, and then if we have family there, they're getting bunches of gifts, so it's like this big gift giving hoopla that he has gotten used to and engages in. But then, now that I'm not in contact with my parents anymore, I find that I'm just not into gifts. It's weird. I think maybe that is my tradition, but I held on to it because, without creating a family of my own, I was still tied to like my family of origin traditions. And the family of origin tradition is to buy a bunch of gifts and give a bunch of gifts. And there's also somewhere with my parents an expectation to give gifts. I think I remember my mother saying, siblings can, stop giving gifts, but there was always a gift given to mom and dad. Like, I think she was talking about, I don't know who she was talking about, actually. I think she was talking about her mother, and who had 3 siblings, and like the fact that they gave to their mother, like they may not have exchanged gifts, the siblings, her mother and her siblings, but they always gave to their parents. Because my mother was an only child, so I don't think she was talking about that. And so it was sort of like encased in me to like, you give gifts and you give gifts to us. So I think like I have to give gifts to my parents, I have to give gifts to my brothers, and then they all had families, and like, hardly anyone in my family of origin all these many years later were giving me gifts. Like my parents gave me a little something. but I think they felt sort of like it was owed to them, not them to do for their adult children, which is fine. But the expectation was on me to do all these gifts. And like when I went no contact with my family, with my parents really, but then the fallout is different relationships with siblings and stuff. It's all just kind of fallen away. And I have felt the freedom of just like, I don't want to do gifts at this time of year. I just don't. I don't know why that is. I think I spontaneously buy gifts throughout the year and give them to people. And that's more my style. This year, I did give RK an advent calendar because I think that's really fun. He likes whiskey. There's a cool whiskey advent calendar. And then I also did the dream planner for him too, even though most of the time women are using this dream planner. I went ahead and bought him a dream planner because he's interested in it. And there's some facial cream and a spray he wants that's kind of pricey. I'm probably going to get him that. But like just doing it, like I see he needs it or something and I'm just going to do it. But it's not like all wrapped up, put underneath the tree and all that these days. He doesn't really, we're going back to what he is, which is like not a big gift giver. So I think it really suits him. But it's kind of interesting to find my way all these many years later about what I want to do with gifts or not. I finally have the freedom to decide that for myself. It's all about gift giving. You went on to talk about just kind of juggling life, the mix of emotions that it's all about. Yeah, I mean, it has been for me a mix of emotions last year, my first year being in the holiday season, Christmas season. Being no contact with my parents, it felt very odd. I did end up making a few dishes that I love to make on Christmas Eve with my grandmother. I filled it in with the dishes I don't like to make. I bought those, and then I made my few sides and things I like. But it felt really sad. And I did say to RK at that time, look, next year I don't want to be in town for Christmas. And luckily he got the 2 weeks off and we're going to go do what we do best, which is travel. And we're going to travel at Christmas time. It does. I hear you saying it'd be fun to travel and just get like 1 or 2 small gifts for each other and like have something really different. And the only other time we traveled on Christmas was to Panama years ago. And we thought we'd have that warm holiday. I mean, yeah, I guess it was warm, but like the resort was actually terrible. And Rube and R got like laid down on like a deck chair at the pool and he fell asleep. And when he woke up, he had like 1,000 bug bites all over him. And they were just, I mean, the heat and the humidity, they were just like all over. They were not healing. Of course, as soon as we went back to our hometown on the West Coast, they all dried up and went away. But like down there, he was just like on fire. He had like go and get a prescription for like cortisone cream to like get it all to calm down. So it was like, and then it was all Disney Princess Parade and it felt so odd. And it was just the whole thing. We're like, ugh, we never want to go away for Christmas again. That being said, we are doing it this year. But we're going to Morocco, which should be like cool but nice and low tourist season. So we should get to see everything we want to see. And then we are going up to northern kind of Europe into Brussels and Amsterdam, where they have all the famous Christmas markets. And apparently a lot of people go for these, markets and the cool, the cold. It's all very charming, Christmas villagey. So we will have that kind of different Christmas this year. And that's kind of exciting. And I think it'll be we'll like it because it's going to be, we'll all be away. And also it's like, it's cool. It's cold weather. For Christmas week, we'll be in the cold weather, which is kind of like what we think of when we think of Christmas. So, that warm weather holiday didn't quite work out. But that leaves us with a very abbreviated season. I am looking forward to our little holiday gathering in December, where I'm going to share with you my Christmas pudding that I would make with my grandmother, which really brings back such good memories. And I think you and I are going to get foot massages to treat ourselves as a Christmas gift. So, see, experiences can also be gifts, which I think is really fun. So, I'm going to take it off this year and go traveling, be back in the time for the new year. Not doing a bunch of gifts, just those few that I mentioned, just as kind of ad hoc gifts. I may get my niece something. I may pick something up overseas T and J. That might be fun. That might match your advent calendar that you're doing right now. And, but just keeping on the down low. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to do is not do a proper Christmas card. I'm going to join you and do one in January. And it's going to be a New Year's card. And I'm going to use a picture from one of our travels, maybe the ones that's upcoming or one that happened already. But I'm super, super excited to change it up, like you said, and do something different and do a card in January. So anyway, Merry Christmas to you, Habs. I look forward to hearing more about your Christmas plans.
Hey, Muffy. Yes, 'tis the season. I, too, really enjoy sharing the holidays with others and sharing and learning about other people's holiday cultures, traditions. I may have mentioned to you, we have friends where we celebrated Diwali with them. And it's kind of special to be, asked to be a part of their special holiday or tradition. These same friends also celebrate. It's called. I'm trying to think of what it's called, like the king cake. So, which means that it represents like the three kings of the Bible, and it's like a Christian tradition that states that it took the king 12 days to reach Bethlehem, whereupon they venerated the Christ child on Epiphany Day. That's the kind of the description behind it. But these same friends, the mom is Indian, but the father is Caucasian and Catholic. So they also celebrate this special king cake. And so what happens in the king cake is everybody has a piece of cake, and whoever finds the king in their cake gets to be king for a day. The first time we did this, Jay got the king and the cake, and she was so excited. Of course, the second year we did it, she did not. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll be invited back. I think it's like 12 days after Christmas or something like that. I'm not getting it totally right, and I'm sure anybody who really knows it will think that I butchered the description, but it's just like an example of it's just kind of, it broadens your experience of your own holidays to share in those of others, and just all the, I think you had mentioned, there's like a brother-sister tradition in August that happens in Indian families, and you never did it until recently, until you were an adult. So I think it's just very special. No, I did not read J.D. Vance's Hilly Billy Elegy. I don't plan on reading it, but it is kind of interesting. The idea behind giving gifts and what that means. I think ultimately, like you said, the freedom to decide if you want to give a gift, that's really the key. People give each other gifts because they want to, and there's meaning and intention behind it, not because they have to. And I hear you. I also grew up in a family where we had a lot of gifts, but my father, who was the only breadwinner for the most part, didn't make a lot of money. I've made more money than him, which isn't saying a lot, but maybe it is actually. But we still got a lot of gifts. The tree was always very full Christmas morning, and there was lots of food on the table for breakfast and dinner and in between. I am actually surprised when you told me, or when you said that your family always gave a lot of gifts on Christmas, that there was always a ton of gifts under the tree. Based on what you've told me about your parents, I am a little bit surprised. There's no There's no judgment there, nothing, but I'm just, yeah, just learn new things every day, right? Uh, but yes, your grandmother brought a lot of the gifts, and I love that she wrapped them so nicely. P does the same thing. The girl's grandmother, she wraps presents, and they are beautiful. Like, they are gorgeous. I'm always very jealous. I know she takes a lot of time, a lot of care. She never gives a ton of gifts, but when she does, they are beautiful. My mom also did not wrap gifts very well, but then again, she had a ton of gifts to wrap. So I get it, because my dad didn't wrap the gifts, and the same thing happens in my family. A doesn't wrap the gifts, so if I have a ton of gifts to wrap, I just don't have the time to make them beautiful every time. I try and mix it up, but it gets to the point where I'm kind of tired of rapping, and I can't come up with anything new. I'm sorry your brother ruined the idea of Santa for you at such a young age. I think that's very meaningful. Something maybe to reflect upon. Like, you like to make things so magical, and maybe there's, the fact that that was lost on you at an early age, has made you retain magic in your life and made things special, because you do have that gift. I love to hear about our Kay's journey of the Christmas holiday. It's very interesting. Yes, when you live in warmer temperatures, it's very different. I know when we lived in California, especially the first year, having a warm Christmas was really kind of surreal. I remember walking around one of the major shopping centers. It was outdoor shopping center with the Christmas tree, and everybody, was just celebrating and walking around like it being really warm was normal. And I was like, wow, this is so different. So I kind of liked the difference, but poor RK in Panama and all the bugs. Yeah, that's definitely a memory you won't forget, but maybe a Christmas holiday you want to forget. So I'm glad that, this year you've gone somewhere warm for the holiday. We have never really given a lot of gifts to our parents. We hardly ever give gifts to P and J, A's parents. We used to give a few gifts to my parents because I think, like your parents, my parents kind of expected it a little bit. Maybe it's like a different generational thing. I mean, my parents are probably 10 years older than A's parents, so I don't know. But I love that, travel, you guys are traveling, and it is a gift. I do agree that an experience can absolutely be a gift. And both A and I firmly believe in that. Like you, A is more of a spontaneous gift giver. He's not a Christmas person. He feels very uncomfortable giving a lot of gifts. And I think that runs from his family. But he likes to do the spontaneous gift. I remember when we were first dating seriously and living together, because we dated for a while, as you know our story. But one day he woke up and he was like, I think you need a bike. I was like, okay. So we went to the bike store and we picked out this beautiful chartreuse bike that matched my car at the time. I had a chartreuse bug, my first car ever, that I bought myself. I never had a car before that, and I was almost 30, which is crazy. And I was so excited, and I rode it home. Well, he drove back to his apartment or his condo. Well, it took me a while because what happened was I was biking along the road, and I decided I needed to get up on the sidewalk, and I was kind of biking along near this major hospital in northern New Jersey where we were living at the time. So I decided I would just go up on the sidewalk. I wouldn't turn my front wheel into the sidewalk. I would just slide over. Well, if you know anything about biking, I think you do, but maybe you don't, you can't really do that. So I fell off my bike, and I fell in front of so there was a nursing home on my right where the sidewalk was, and then a major hospital on my left. Well, I fell so hard that I thought maybe I almost broke my arm, and I fell in front of this poor old guy who was so concerned. Well, I ended up having to walk the bike home because I had totally messed up the handlebars. And I got home and A was like, what happened? My jeans were ripped. I was bleeding. My knuckles on my hands were all bleeding. Oh, I had to go to bed. But still, it was a wonderful, spontaneous gift. And so I love that about him. So there's so many different ways to give gifts, and the meaning of giving gifts and the holiday and how we celebrate it. And I try hard to bring some of that in to our lives for the girls. But yes, I think that's something that is developed over time as you mature, and it takes on different kind of meanings, which is what it's all about. It's a special time of year.
Hey Habs, it's Muffy. Wow, I can't even believe that bike accident. I never knew you had such an accident with that gorgeous bike of yours. But it was good. It was by a hospital and nursing home. If you needed help, you were going to get it. I can imagine the old guy was traumatized seeing you fall like that. I mean, I know it's Christmas, but it brings, and so we shouldn't be talking about bloody matters, but it brings to mind a friend of a friend who told me a story of a biking accident, and her sister's husband, they were biking to a trail. So they weren't on the trail yet. They were just biking to the trail. And the husband had a really bad accident where he, I think, flipped over the handlebars of the bike and slammed into someone's windshield. And apparently it shattered on his face. And basically, I think he slammed them down onto the ground. When her sister got to her husband, his face was off of him. And she had to hold it there for the ambulance. And this was kind of where you have lived, near Stanford. And they took her husband and the face that was kind of off and took him to the really fine hospital and reconstructed that. I don't think he ever had the courage to get on a bike again. And again, these are kind of middle-aged people. I think a lot of people in middle age think they can do everything they could do in their 40s and in their 30s and their 20s. I think people in their 50s think I'm still that. And maybe, but if things go wrong, you're not. And he learned that the absolute hardest way. And the daughter was also biking with them and saw him with his face off. And apparently she's still going to therapy around it because it was so traumatizing for her. So I don't know what it was. As soon as you talked about the bike accident, that accident came to me. I mean, having lived in the city, we lived in the West. I mean, there's a lot of hills, and there were a lot of bad bike accidents of people we knew, and also just in general, you'd hear stories. As I mentioned, our Kay's a radiologist, so he saw a lot of bad stuff. I don't know. I am a little bit familiar with biking, but only as a kid on one of those little banana seat bikes with a nice basket. I was never a biker. It's just way, way too dangerous, in my opinion. I did one biking expedition in the Dominican Republic with this Iguana Mama company through the Dominican Alps, and I just wanted to try it. It was great, but it was also what am I even doing? So I did have that moment in the sun with a bike. But it was a brief moment that I will not be ever living again. Maybe I'm into the bloody territory because, we're going to Bruges. And if anyone has ever seen the movie In Bruges, there is a very bloody scene on Christmas Eve in the town square. And apparently that's the most traveled movie destination. And I have always wanted to go to Bruges on Christmas Eve and be in the town square. So there you go. My movie fantasy is about to come true, but it's all about bloodiness. It's not like some happy romantic Hallmark Christmas movie. It's a bloody hitman movie that's kind of a dramedy. Anyway, stay safe, Habs. Just want to say that, yes, travel can be a gift, the experience. Also, RK and I will definitely pick up stuff as we go along. In Morocco, we will definitely hit the bazaars, and we love to, collect some pieces of art, nothing expensive, but just things that are meaningful for us. We'll buy stuff there. We will be in the Christmas markets in Amsterdam and Belgium, going to the Van Gogh Museum and the other museums in Amsterdam. I mean, so we will be picking things up, and those will be our Christmas gifts, right? And it'll remind us of, this trip of 2024. So it's all good. So there'll be gifts. They just won't be wrapped under a tree. It's funny that you're surprised my parents did gifts. I mean, of course, that was my mother mainly. My father was always notorious for going out Christmas Eve day and being like, oh, I have to get my wife and I think mainly my wife a gift. And it was actually hysterical. He really did not know her very well at all and would buy her the craziest stuff that was just like comical. And I will say the epitome of that was on, I don't know, it was a Christmas day years and years ago, but my mother opens this gift that he bought her on Christmas Eve thinking of her. And it was this like bright pink hippie candle. Like the guy was he didn't look like a gnome, but he kind of had that look. He had like a long nose or something. It was one of those shops probably in the mall, like in the center, like one of those pop-up places where they had these like candles that were just butt ugly. And just you'd walk by and be like, who would buy that as a gift for somebody? He was the guy who did that. So instead of my mother being so disappointed, although I'm sure she was, it all just became this really comical joke. And I think they kept it and just it's like a laugh. But those are the sort of things he would get her. So that was his specialty. My mother, of course, I was talking about her mother. My grandmother would come with the most beautiful gifts. So she grew up with the nice Christmas. And back in those days, they didn't even put a Christmas tree up, until Christmas Eve night. So my mother, when she was a little girl, would go to bed and the house was just normal. And then my grandmother would come home from work because she worked all the time. And she worked, I think, at a department store when my mother was very small. And she would bring all the gifts. And by the way, back in those days, they did not wrap gifts. They just put the gifts under the tree. So she had all the gifts, but she would set up the Christmas tree. And I think it was a real tree that they had. My grandmother would do that work that night after my mother went to bed. And then she'd have all those toys put under the tree. And so when my mother would wake up Christmas morning, Christmas was made for her, right? Like it was nothing. And then Christmas morning, it was like Santa brought the tree. He lit it. He put the ornaments on. He had all the presents. And it was magical. So my mother is coming from that type of family. And I think what I'm hearing is, where you've come from, where my mother's come from, my own traditions of where I've come from, that's how gifts kind of get their meaning. So yes, we always had gifts. A ton of gifts from both my parents and from my grandparents. The grandparents were more special and, like I said, wrapped beautifully. But we had a ton of gifts. And I think that is coming from my mother's tradition. That's interesting about how that magical Santa was lost on me so early. It really was. I was completely devastated. But you're right. I do keep magic in my heart. And not only for the other, but for myself. It's funny how I have been enjoying the adventures in the city with your girls, and now these little ones that are coming up in my own family that are really small. They're like three, baby meaning 8 months, 3 and 7. And oh my goodness, I can take them in the city and just have these magical adventures. And it is magic to see it through a kid's eyes. Although I think I keep the spirit in my heart. Even when I go off to a place like Serendipity on my own, it's just delightful for me. But when I did it with Jay And when I do it with these little ones later on, it's just a whole different type of magic. I mean, making magic for children is extraordinary. But I think I've always kept that spirit. But maybe that had an influence on me. I don't know. I think I just always had that, even as that was taken from me. I don't know if I connect that up, that I got that taken away from me and then I went to holding on to magic. I think it was always just a part of me. It was very sad, though. I will never forget the devastation I had at that moment. And yes, speaking of siblings, there is an Indian tradition. I forget the actual name of it, or if I say it, it's going to be like not spoken correctly. But it is this wonderful brother-sister tradition, and it's based on the Indian calendar, and it seems to fall sometime in August. No, my father never gave me and my brothers this tradition, which is very sad, because it's about fidelity of a brother to a sister. And the sister ties on a little, they call it a reiki or something, I think. You tie it around the brother's hand, and then you give the brother a sweet, and then the brother hugs you and basically gives you, I think, some money to say, I'll protect you. Because it goes back to the days when girls and women, they didn't go out, right? So the brother was kind of responsible. And it's not just your brothers. Like my male cousins and I, they're considered my brothers, and so we will do it, my cousins. But yeah, I never had that tradition with my own brothers. It was never given, and is something that's very sad to me. But it's happy for me now because I get to do it every year with my cousin brothers. So it is very, very special. These traditions are all very, very special. Merry Christmas to one and all. Thanks for tuning in to Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy, as we want to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. For more, tune in to us at Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy on Instagram. Till next time.